Hey guys, how's it going? Kripp here. Today I want to give you guys a basic rundown of the mechanics and strategies in the game Faeria. Now, Faeria is a game I've played quite a lot of recently, and you have to keep in mind this is a sponsored video. I have been sponsored to stream and make videos about the game, but I absolutely love it. This is a very interesting spin on card games, and it has a lot of strategic elements that are really difficult to master. It's a game that you can get into right away, but still has people like me who's played it for over 50 hours thinking on what I can do, what I should do, and what options I really have at any given point. So it really stays true to a lot of the games that I like that are, easy to get into, but almost impossible to master. So I want to get into it here. This is Faeria. It has a lot of different play modes. It has, a bunch of different cards. I can show you guys my deck here. This is the deck I've been playing recently. It's just a deck that has a lot of removal, and with that, I can kind of control the game as I want, and that is a very important part of Faeria. So it has a lot of different ways to play, a lot of different aspects. You can play solo, which I will be playing against the practice mode just to show you guys how it works. There's a little bit of an adventure, which kind of acts as the tutorial. There's the battle mode. You can play unranked and ranked, and you can queue for both of them at the same time if you wish, just to play as fast as possible. And they have a Pandora mode, and the Pandora mode is kind of like a build your own deck mode, and you play against other people who have basically drafted their deck through different options. Today I'm mostly going to highlight the basic parts of the game so you can kind of understand how it works. Now, if you do want to get into Faeria, it is a buy-to-play game, but the first few packages cost only a few dollars, so it's not too big of a deal. You can use the link in my description if you want. It is very similar to a lot of other card games where you can purchase packs or earn them or earn tokens by just playing the game. I did play the game through the original starter pack when I first started, and I basically could play almost whatever I wanted, so you definitely don't have to get like the full collection, but if you want to get the full collection, it's definitely cheaper and more easy than any other card game. You can literally buy every card in the game for $50. So you can do that if you want, and it's very cool that they have that option because it really makes sense. I think probably a lot of card games in the future will take this idea as well. Now, as far as the actual game goes, again, I'll show you guys my deck here. Lots of removal. There's a few different aspects to each card and how it's played. The game is a card game. These are all the different cards in the deck. We can review one card here, but I'm not going to go too much into the cards because it's easier if I show you within a game, which we'll get into in a moment. So a card like Last Nightmare destroys a creature. Very simple. If you look at the card, the 6, which is circled by the blue, that's the amount of Faeria that needs to be spent to play the card. And you see the 3, and then it's surrounded by a yellow symbol. That symbol is a desert, so you need to have 3 desert tiles, and that will make more sense in a moment. But just to note, in terms of the overall idea behind any given deck, you can make a deck full of neutral cards, neutral creatures, and you can kind of make it work that way. There's a few neutral spells as well. There's an advantage to playing neutral because you can pop 2 neutral land tiles as opposed to 1 specific land tile. You can make a forest deck. You can see that these have 4. This is like a threshold cost, so you need to have 3 forests and spend 1 Faeria to play this card. Blue is lakes, red is mountains, and yellow is deserts. When you're making a deck, it's very important to stay away from cards that require a high threshold cost in terms of lands if you're going to play multiple colors. If we scroll down here, I know for deserts, some of the most powerful cards that require just 5 deserts. Having 5 deserts is a lot. You can definitely do that if you're playing just a desert deck, but if you want to play a deck like mine, which has deserts and mountains, well, I need to avoid cards like that because it will be too difficult to play. It'll be too difficult to acquire that much land. So what am I talking about? What is this land system? Let's go over here and we'll just play against a typical practice opponent here. I just want to do this to outline a lot of the mechanics, not so much show off the deck or my ability to play the game. I want you guys to understand what's going on when you're watching someone else or myself play Faeria. So as the game starts, you either go first or second. if you go first, you will not have this card that's in my hand here, Explore. This is not a card that was in my deck. This card is given kind of like the going second advantage, I guess. You know, the advantage for going first is you get to act first. The advantage for going second is you get the Explore card, which is a spell. So it's an action card which can activate some of your other cards as well, and it creates a Prairie, which is a land that doesn't have a specific type, and it gives you 2 Faeria. So things in blue are fair, and of course it costs 0 to activate. So at the start of the game, it's asking me if I want to keep my hand. So the mulligan stage in Faeria is, I would say, a little bit dangerous. You can either choose to keep your whole hand or not keep any of your hand. So I have a Firestorm, which is an AoE effect, and I generally want to do this in the late game. I have a Kaleem's Follower, which in this deck I use just as gaining some extra control on the board, some extra Faeria, but in this case I don't think it'll fit too well, and a Shaitan Vampire, which mostly is to control a lot of clusters of creatures that the opponent plays. So none of these cards really work for me in this spot, so I'm going to redraw. I'm just going to get 3 cards at random, and hopefully they're a little bit better, and I think they are. So my opponent starts the game. At the start of each turn, you gain 3 Faeria. Faeria is the number here that you see, and Faeria is very different than a lot of the resource mechanics in other card games because it accumulates. So if I play nothing, I will have the 3 that I didn't spend plus the 3 that I will gain at the start of next turn. And that's really the big strategic component. So you know, in some games, if they play a big thing, you have to remove the big thing. In this game, because as you see, the creature that my opponent played is way on the other side of the map, I don't really have to deal with it, even if it's a super scary creature. If it doesn't pose an immediate threat, I can remove it exactly when it does pose the immediate threat, because I can save up that land. I can have passive turns and still succeed in even a tempo game in the game. That's why a lot of people kind of, I think, fail to really establish the early game, because they feel like they need to play stuff constantly, but you really don't because of this mechanic. So you can see that my opponent played a land, and he played a forest, and then he played the seedling on the forest. The seedling costs 2 Faeria and requires him to have 1 forest. So he played 1 forest, and then he played the seedling on the forest, which you have to do. If a card has a threshold requirement, you have to play that card on that type of land. So we see that the air elemental has a threshold requirement of 1 desert. Well, I can only play the air elemental on a desert. So that does restrict you from playing, but that also gives you a strategic component to place your lands more wisely. So speaking of placing lands, this has to do with your once a turn action. So you see here in the green circle, these are options, and I can choose one of them at the start of every turn, or whenever during the turn, I guess. So I can choose to put down a lake, I can choose to put down a forest. I wouldn't want to do that because my deck has no forest cards and no lake cards. I can choose to put down a mountain. So if I put down a mountain, I can put another mountain the next turn, save the 3 Faeria for this turn, and save the and use the 3 Faeria that I gain next turn to play a ground shaker. So I can play a ground shaker if I play a mountain now, and if I play another mountain at the start of the next turn. I can play a desert. If I play a desert, I will meet the threshold requirement of air elemental. I only have 3 Faeria, but I can gain 2 using the Explore card, so I could play the air elemental this turn if I want. I don't have to place down any one specific land tile. I can put down 2 blank tiles. Blank tiles allow you to place neutral creatures on them. They allow you pathway, and they allow you sometimes to block off your opponent. You can put down 2 neutral land tiles, which often allows you to open up a much more aggressive opener. So if I wanted, I could put neutral land tiles all the way straight to my opponent, and then put like a red or mountain tile here and put down a guy there. So I think this turn I want to play a desert tile. If I don't want to play a land tile at all, I can either gain an extra Faeria, which again accumulates turn after turn, or I can draw another card. Now the goal of the game is pretty simple. You want to kill your opponent. My opponent has 20 life, I have 20 life, and the brawl happens in between. These 4 wells in each of the corners here refresh at the start of every turn, and if you have an active creature next to one, and an active creature is one that can attack, so if he played the seedling here, he couldn't have, but let's just say he had a forest there. If you played the seedling there, it would not grab the Faeria well for the turn. It would only do so the next turn when it could act, when it could move. So, because Faeria accumulates turn after turn, if you have board control, you can gather more Faeria than your opponent, which you can use throughout the game whenever you wish for, let's just say, plays. Now, before we get too into it, let's just play the game for a little bit here. So I can either play the desert, or I can choose to explore and then play the desert. I think in my case, I will play the desert here. I will choose to explore, create a prairie. Prairie is a blank land and gain 2. I'm going to do that here, and then the air elemental has a gift to create a desert. And these keywords, gift, does something when you play a card from your hand. These are outlined on the card, so you can kind of understand what they do. Flying can move over the ocean, so it doesn't need to move over land. That's a very interesting aspect. So I'm going to play this, and I'm going to use the gift to create a desert here. And because this doesn't need land to gather Faeria, I can move it there, and I can expand my land base here. You can only play land next to other land that you control, or next to an opponent's land when you have a creature on an adjacent tile. So I can't do anything else. I'm going to end the turn. As my opponent's turn starts, he gains 3 Faeria. He puts down a prairie, which is a blank land tile, which means he can put down another. He moves his seedling close to the Faeria well to gain 1 additional Faeria for the turn, which is kind of what I'm going to try to do as well. So here, the first obvious move, I can move my creature 1 tile. Generally, creatures only move 1 tile unless they have charge abilities, and sometimes a creature can have charge and then a very high number. Sometimes creatures can move all across the map instantaneously, but this is not one of those. This can only move 1 at a time. I'm going to move next the Faeria well, which increases my total Faeria by 1. And I want to put down a mountain because my entire hand requires threshold for mountain cards, so I want to play down a mountain. I can put it only adjacent to existing land tiles, so I can choose to develop mountains on the right side, on the center, or on the left. I'm going to choose to put it on the left because I want to begin to put some pressure on this side of the board that my opponent is trying to develop. Now, with only 5 Faeria, I can't play anything, but again, the 5 Faeria will move on to my next turn, so it will not go to waste. My opponent puts down another forest, so now he can play cards that have threshold costs of 2 forests. Puts down a wood elemental, which as a gift creates a forest. Now he can have threshold costs of 3 forests. It's important to keep in mind and not to confuse that a threshold is not a resource. So if I only have 1 desert, let's say, I could play as many air elementals as I have in my deck, even only on 1 desert. Now, I probably couldn't do that because I need to place them on a desert, but it doesn't consume the desert. You just need to have that many deserts to be able to play this guy. So that's what's going on with that. My opponent is trying to expand here, and I want to punish him a little bit. It's very important to realize some of the keywords in the game. We see that the wood elemental has gift create forest, much like my air elemental, but it also has taunt. And taunt opponent's creatures adjacent to this one can't do anything else than attacking it. So if I place down a mountain near this creature, my creature that I play will have to attack that or do nothing. You can choose to do nothing. So see, this creature has not acted for the turn. It has a green halo on it, and I can just keep it in place. I can do nothing. If there was a taunt guy there, I don't have to attack it, but I couldn't make this move if there was an enemy taunt over there. But I'm going to move this guy up. I'm going to move the air elemental to try to go back and forth between these 2 wells. The 2 positions on the side are very important because you can gather 2 Faeria wells with 1 creature, and this is not possible at any other point on the map except, again, for creatures that have very large charge numbers associated with their tags. So here again, I should be playing a mountain. So I will play a mountain. I can choose where I want to do it. I kind of want to deal with his 2/3 there as soon as possible. But there actually is another strategy here. So next turn, this will have 4 health. The Ground Shaker deals 1 to all enemies. So this will be at 3 on my next turn because it will be up 1 and -1. This will go to 3. This will go to 7. And if the Ground Shaker attacks the Deepwood Grizzly, then I can Firestorm and kill the Grizzly, the Wood Elemental, and the Seedling. Okay, so this is why this game takes quite a bit to master. Thinking turns ahead and considering the positioning and considering the cumulative advantages that happen in this game can take a lot. And it's definitely for players who love games with depth. So I'm going to put the mountain here because if I put it here, it's impossible for my opponent's taunt creature to lock my Ground Shaker in place. So I'm going to put a Ground Shaker here, and the only way that my play will be punished is if he moves his Deepwood Grizzly back, and I don't think there's any chance of that. I guess there's some chance that he might expand forward and play a taunt guy there, but it looks like that is not the case. Looks like everything is going according to plan. He plays a Wild Growth action card. He's just filling the board with forests. And here I can show you guys another mechanic that I didn't talk about yet. It's the total number of actions that you can have. So I can attack and move with a creature. But if I attack, I cannot move after I attack. If I move, I can attack after I move. And my goal with this Ground Shaker is to move as close as possible to this Faeria well and as close as possible to the top corner here because I want to continue to deny my opponent from gaining additional Faeria. Right now he's gaining 2 a turn and I'm gaining 1. Though I will soon be gaining 2, I want to be ahead. I want to be in a position where I'm gaining 2, he's gaining 1, or he's gaining nothing. So I'm going to move before I attack. Then I'm going to attack. Then I want to play the Firestorm, which is what I plan to play, but can't because I need an extra mountain for the threshold cost. So for my 1-turn action, I have to use a mountain. Where should I place it? It might be best to place it here because then I can advance with another creature on the following turn a little bit more closer to my opponent than otherwise. So here comes Firestorm. That finishes off my opponent's creatures, and I have complete control over the board. Now, while I haven't definitely won, there's a lot of positions in this game because the total Faeria, the total resource accumulates turn after turn. It can be very difficult to say that you're in a winning position if you have a lot of the board, but your opponent actually has a lot of resource left. But I think this is pretty over, largely because my opponent just spent his entire Faeria pool on creating a big creature next to me. He's probably trying to pressure me, but that's not going to work because I have Last Nightmare. I can outright destroy his creature. To do that, though, I need 6 Faeria, and I need 3 deserts. I don't have 3 deserts, and I also don't have 6 Faeria, but if I reposition my creatures, I could gain an extra Faeria. If I reposition my creature there, I'm in that spot where this one creature can gain 2 Faeria, and I can move my creature to this Faeria well. I actually have a total Faeria count of 7. So I need to put down another desert to be able to Last Nightmare. I'm going to put it in an aggressive position, and then I'm going to Last Nightmare. And trust me, if this was an actual opponent and not an AI, he would have conceded at this point in the game. At this point in the game, he has nothing. He only has 3 Faeria to try to do anything with. I am gaining 3 on top of the 3 for the on-turn effect for gathering resources, and he's gaining only 3. So I'm gaining twice as many resources. It's as if I have 2 bases and he has 1, and it's almost impossible for him to catch up from this position. He's probably trying to get close to that Faeria or maybe try to attack my face, but this is a very small minion. I can just play a Defender of the Homeland, which has Taunt, right in front of my face here, and that will prevent his guy from moving. He won't even be able to move to get this Faeria well. So this game is basically done. It'll probably take a few minutes until it's over, but again, I just wanted to show you guys this example so you can get some idea about how the game works and have some understanding, as I'll have some more in-depth gameplay and strategies coming up in future videos. But for now, I hope you guys have enjoyed the basics of the game and give you guys some cool ideas about what's going on, what's on the innovation edge of card games these days. So I hope you guys did enjoy it, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.